I'd like to introduce Michael Payne, who is sitting right in front of me here, to talk about the application of the sharing solutions that we have for an organisation that's 80,000 individuals, Michael, I think, in the UK. And Michael is a representative from a Department of Welfare and Pensions, which is very much like our Centrelink. So, having said that, Michael, the microphone is yours.
Thank you very much. You've stolen some of my key figures already, Gus, but anyway, we'll ignore that. Thank you very much for the invite. I'm really pleased to come over here, tell you a little bit about the work of the Department for Work and Pensions and what I do in there and how we've used the software that Space-Time Research have made available to us for a small fee. So I'll go through some of that today. So I'm lucky enough to work in one of the highest profile government departments in the UK. Over the past 5 or so years, since 2010, when the coalition government came into power, it's been an incredibly busy, incredibly exciting time to work in the department. And what I want to do today is go through some of the things that have happened over the last 5 years. So I'll give you a little bit of background about the department, about what we do, and then how we publish statistics from within the department. So a little bit about the department. We're the biggest public service department in the UK. We employ around about 80,000 people at the moment. That's quite a considerable decrease since 2010. We had about 100,000 people work for the department in 2010. That's gradually reduced, but still a very large employer in the UK. We have a network of about 700 offices in the UK, mainly in the form of offices called Job Centre Plus offices, and they deliver a lot of the policy and operational things that we do in the department. We look after a wide range of people, so from welfare to pensions and children. So we're responsible for policy and paying unemployment benefits, disability benefits, pension benefits, and also some help towards housing costs in the UK. We're also responsible for maintaining information and policy on child maintenance for absent parents in the UK. So we're like I say, a really big department. We touch the lives of practically everybody at some point in their lives, so from children till unfortunately the day that they die. Being a statistician, I like to put a few slides up with some numbers on. So I'll let you digest some of these numbers. These are some key figures from last year from within the department. And there's some really big numbers in there. So from the number of calls that we answer every year to the number of people that do job searches, some really vast amount of data. It makes us a really data-rich organisation, probably the most data-rich organisation, government department in the UK. The key number for me out of those numbers is this one. So just the sheer amount of contact we have with the population of the UK. So we paid benefits to 22 million people last year. So that's just roughly the size of the population of Australia. And we paid an amount of almost £168 billion. That's quite a staggering amount of money that goes through the department. So again, to put that into some context, that's around about the GDP of a country like Greece, although maybe it's a little bit bigger than the GDP. So a really, really vast amount of data, benefits that are paid each year. The amount of money that flows through the department, the amount of people that we employ, the scale of our offices. If we were a private company, we would be right up there in terms of the stock market. We're not a private company, and certainly my pay reflects that. So I mentioned a little bit before that since 2010 there's been a big programme of welfare reform in the department. So things like, you may have heard some of these phrases that have come across to Australia. So we've introduced something called a benefit cap, the maximum amount that somebody can claim in benefits. We've introduced something called the removal of the spare room subsidy for social housing tenants is the full title. more affectionately known as the bedroom tax in the UK. We've introduced new disability benefits. We've introduced new regulations around private pensions. Perhaps the biggest reform, though, which I'm lucky enough to work on in a statistical point, is universal credit. So universal credit is a new way that's going to replace a lot of the working age benefits in the UK. I want to tell you a little bit about universal credit because I think it's useful background, but there's a little video, and this is where the technical situation happens or doesn't happen. So I'm going to try and play this little video. It's only a minute or so, but it tells you a little bit about universal credit, and then I'll talk whilst I've played that video.
Universal credit is a new service that helps ensure you're better off in work than you are on benefits. It's for people who are out of work or on a low income, and is designed to make work pay. It replaces 6 benefits, including job seekers allowance, tax credits and housing benefit, with one single monthly payment. Universal credit is usually claimed online. Your job centre can tell you about local places where you can access the internet for free. Universal credit tops up your earnings when you start work or increase your hours. Your payment reduces gradually as you earn more, so you won't lose all your benefits at once. You can work more than 16 hours a week and still receive universal credit. And if you're a parent, you'll be able to get help towards childcare costs, even if you work for just a few hours a week. Your claim continues when you start work, so you won't need to reapply if your circumstances change. To get universal credit, you'll need to accept a claimant commitment that sets out the steps you'll take to find a job. And if you're able to work, you'll be expected to look for work on a full-time basis. You'll get expert help from a coach at your job centre. But if you don't do what you've agreed, your benefits may be cut. If you're unable to work, universal credit will support you. If you're already claiming benefits, you don't need to do anything now. You'll be told what universal credit means for you in good time. You can prepare for the change by going online to www.gov.uk/universal credit.
Okay, so why have I played that video? It tells you a little bit about universal credit, but I think hopefully you've got a flavour from that video about the sheer amount of information that we will expect to collect in universal credit and the demand for information and statistics that will result. So it's a journey that goes across a lot for a lot of people that touches employment, unemployment, childcare costs, housing costs, whether they get sanctioned, which is a term that's used if they don't do what they're expected to do. A vast amount of information will start to come through from universal credit. So, what's my role? I'm a statistician in the department, and we employ around about 300 analysts in the Department for Work and Pensions. Biggest employer of statisticians outside the Office for National Statistics, and one of the biggest employers of analysts in the country. Specifically for me, I am responsible for publishing official statistics from within the department. And we publish around about 200 sets of statistical information each year. So we call them official statistics. But we don't just publish statistics, we also have to answer queries about the statistics that we publish. So members of Parliament can ask questions and ask for information, and we get a few hundred of those each year. Since the early 2000s, since the Freedom of Information Act in the UK, we've also been responsible for answering information that have been posed under FOI requests. And that number is increasing. So what's happening in the department is there's a big programme of welfare reform. The demand for the number of official statistics that we produce is increasing quite rapidly, and the request for further statistical information has been increasing quite rapidly as well. Of course, that uses a lot of resources. One of the things, not only is it since 2010 is we've had a big welfare reform programme, we've had to implement some significant efficiency challenges within the department. So talked about the number of staff that's reduced over the course of the last 5 years, and that applies to us as analysts as well. So we have to get smarter in the way that we publish and produce official statistics. With those increasing demand for statistics, we wanted to find a way of improving that and making the experience better for our users. So, we tried to speak to our users what do you want from statistics and data? First problem we had is that we didn't know who our users were. We used to release our statistics through Excel spreadsheets mainly. So we'd set out a set of Excel spreadsheets. We'd chuck them somewhere on the web. Nobody could probably find them, but maybe that was a good thing in some cases. We certainly didn't know who our users were. So it was a big challenge. We did manage to get some information from our users about who they are, and we invited them into the department. Not quite with the magnificent breakfast that we've got here today, but we did give them free coffee, which is more than Nick gets when he comes over to the UK to visit us. Unfortunately, they were in the days when we could offer visitors free coffee. We're not allowed to now. So we got some users in. And we asked them, what do you want? And that was part of the process that we went through. There was lots of things that users want, but there was some key themes. These were the key themes that they wanted. They wanted data in a format that they could easily get hold of. And really importantly as well, they wanted to be able to reuse that data without restrictions. So the format of the data and the availability to reuse that was really important to users. They wanted some really detailed data. If you're outputting statistics in Excel spreadsheets, you're really restricted as to what you can provide to users. Geography was a real particular need for users in the UK. They wanted to go down to the lowest level of geography. Our official statistics tended to go down to a very broad local government level and nothing below that. They wanted, which we were quite happy with, they wanted to try and get those statistics themselves. They wanted to fetch those data and not be dictated to as to what statistics and what breakdowns that they could gather. So there was a bit of self-service that they wanted as well. A big issue in terms of producing official statistics, particularly when you output in Excel spreadsheets, is what do those statistics, what does that data mean? And we used to bung, I don't know whether if you produce tables in Excel, you bung a couple of footnotes at the bottom of the tables and nobody ever reads them and you never update them month after month. They quickly become out of date. Users wanted to know what does that data mean? Were the points in that data where something happened that affected the data? What codes do we use? They didn't want to be, I sort of mentioned this a little bit, they didn't want to be dictated to over what data and statistics they could get hold of. So we used to produce tables which had age groups. So how many people claim a benefit by particular age groups? And we used to say, these are the age groups you're getting, 18 to 24, 25 to 39, 40 to 59, 60 plus, 4 age groups, and that's it. Well, quite rightly, users said, well, why can't we do our own age groups? Why can't we build our own geographies? Why can't we build a table which gives a breakdown of age by gender, by ethnicity, by geography? We couldn't do that, and the reason we couldn't do it is because the output available to us didn't allow us to do it. So what happened was that users used to come to us, and we used to produce those tables for them, and we don't charge for producing tables, so it used to cost us a lot of money. It used to take up a lot of time. The final thing is they wanted something that was relatively easy to use. So we have data sets in statistical packages. So our main statistical package that we use is SAS, but it's a bit easier to use now, the new versions of SAS, but certainly in the past it was difficult to use SAS. It was difficult to get data out of it. It was certainly difficult to make any sense of the data. So they were the key themes. So that's all very well. Users, we know what the users want. What do we want as producers of statistics? We have needs as well. Of course, we wanted what the users want. That goes without saying. So we wanted what the users want. But we had a couple of additional things that we needed. We needed to ensure that any statistics and data that we put out into the public domain maintain the privacy of claimants in the UK. So we needed to maintain confidentiality. That's important, because as a producer of an official statistics, I have to abide by the code of practice for official statistics in the UK, which is a very big thing. It's like the doctor's Hippocratic oath. We will not go against the code of practice. More importantly, we have to abide by Acts of Parliament. There's a Social Security Act in the UK, and if we knowingly release information on individual claimants, we're liable for a prison sentence as a result of that. We also we recognised that we didn't know anything about our users. We wanted to get in touch with our users. We wanted to have conversations with our users. What breakdowns do you want? Can we tell you about new data that we're about to release? Really important. So I'm going to go back to universal credit. We talked about universal credit before, as well as one of the particular things that I've been doing over the last couple of years is producing official statistics on universal credit. So it came in April 2013 for the first time. It's been gradually rolling out across the country, and my team is responsible for publishing official statistics on universal credit. We put together a package for producing official statistics on universal credit. And it's not just about releasing the data in the most granular level, it's also being able to articulate what those statistics mean. So we have 4 products that we release for universal credit. So we have what we call a statistical first release. So this is a document, a PDF document that we usually release. And this gives you the very key messages on universal credit, the top line, how many people are claiming. Believe it or not, our statistical first releases, you had to probably go down to page 5 or so to get the first bit of useful data. So our first page was all about the department and then contact details and then issues with the data and whatever. So we've redesigned our first release for universal credit, and the front page looks like that. That is the front page of universal credit. We've removed all of the junk from it, and it's just the key messages. We know that people are using them because those charts and those key messages are regularly getting used on social media. So we know that that's working to some extent. We still produce the Excel tables. So we haven't got rid of Excel tables altogether. Why haven't we got rid of Excel tables? It's because some people still quite like to have summary tables. And it's a useful way of getting to some detailed data relatively quickly, particularly journalists like Excel tables, if they've got some local area information. However, our Excel tables for universal credit, there are probably only about half a dozen of them. So we've cut down from producing 30, 40 tables of data to maybe half a dozen of key statistics. We try to be a little bit more visual in terms of our statistics. So one of the products that we've used is an interactive map, which has gone down really well. Click on a job centre location. It'll tell you when universal credit was implemented. It'll give you some summary statistics as well. And finally, a little bit of software that these guys probably want me to mention. So this is the software that underpins, and it's fair to say that this software underpins those 3 other products that we produce. So this is SuperWeb 2. We've rebranded it as stat-xplore. So it's called stat-xplore, and that's just our name for the product. And that is the tool that we use to publish the really detailed data and statistics on universal credit. However, all of those other products use SuperWeb, stat-xplore to get their figures from. The data goes into stat-xplore, and we use that to produce other products. So, some of the key features, and this goes back to the needs of the users. So it is a self-service model. So stat-xplore, the users can go in. We allow users and we encourage users to register for the service, but they don't need to. If they don't want to register, they don't need to. They don't get any less access to data if they don't register. But they can go in and they can access data themselves and they can customize data. So I talked about age groups before. They can create their own age groups if they want to. So we release data at individual age level and they can create whatever age groups they want. And they can create their own geographies, for example, as well. It can handle really large, complex data sets. So the first data set we put into stat-xplore was around people claiming a benefit called housing benefit in the UK. That data set now has about 400 million rows of data in there. And is really complex in terms of the breakdowns that are available. That data set with 400 million rows of data sits behind stat-xplore. So we don't aggregate it. We don't produce data cubes. It is a database of individuals. What's really important goes back to confidentiality is statistical data, statistical disclosure control. So this is built into stat-xplore. We've customized it to some extent, but it's built into stat-xplore. And what that means is we can be confident no matter how much detail a user goes down to, an individual can't be identified from that data. Really, really important. The output from stat-xplore can be easily reused. Click of a button, you can take it into Excel. You can download it as a CSV file. You can output it to an open data format like statistical data and metadata exchange. What's really interesting as well now is that the Spacetime have developed an open data API as well, which we're just hopefully going to implement pretty soon. What we call metadata, information about data, we've really gone to town in stat-xplore. So every single breakdown and every code is included now for the users for the first time. So if they're not sure what breakdown they want to put in a table, there's a little information button. It brings up further information. It tells you what codes can be used. So if they want to take data from that we produce and use it in combination with data from the Office for National Statistics, all the coding systems that sit behind that are available for users as well. The final thing, we know a little bit more now about our users. So we know who our users are to some extent. We know what data sets they're accessing and how often they're accessing it. I just wanted to illustrate a couple of, again, short screen capture videos. So there's no sound, you'll be pleased to know, on these. And these just illustrate a couple of things that the software can do for us. One is around how a user can really delve into some quite detailed breakdowns, and one is a little bit around visualization. So just play this one. So this video illustrates the ability to delve down into detailed geographies. It's one of our key requirements from users. So we've built in a hierarchical geography classification in the table. And it's really easy to start at the top level and delve down if you're a user, and the data will be retrieved automatically. So this is cycling through some 8 or 9 layers of statistical classification, geography classifications. So it starts at the GB level, and it will eventually go down to a geography classification called census output area in the UK. Census output area is incredibly detailed, based on a very small number of population or households, and there are about 200,000 census output areas across Great Britain. So it's a classification that was a real need for our users, and you can see how easy it is to go down to the very, very lowest level. That's the lowest level it goes down to. Some very small numbers in there, but bear in mind those numbers have had disclosure control applied to them. So it looks like we're releasing very detailed information, but it's safe information as well. The other short video is a little bit that's improved a lot in the SuperWeb 2 software, and that's the chart functionality. So I'm just going to build a quick age by gender breakdown and show it in a chart. And the illustration of this is that the charts are now quite nice and quite interactive, so you can use them on their own, and you can certainly reuse those charts as well. So it's relatively easy. Build a table, click on Graph View, chart comes up, you get some options to choose from. You choose the most appropriate options. You can interact a little bit with those charts. You can hover over them, tell you some information. And you can also reuse those charts. So you can download them into a graphics file and then take it into the package if you want to put it in a Word document or a PDF document. One thing with the chart, which is really important to us as statistics producers, is that it really helps our quality assurance of the data. So we don't just chuck out official statistics. We have to be sure of the quality of those official statistics before we put them out. And stat-xplore and the charting aspect is really key to that. It's one of the first things that we do in processing our data is we put the data into stat-xplore, and that allows us to quality assure it. And we use the charting functionality extensively to do that. It's particularly powerful at picking up potential issues across geographies or across time series. It allows you to very quickly to see if there are any issues that need further investigating. So I talked about our better user engagement. I just wanted to share with you some statistics again. And this is some broad figures from stat-xplore since it was launched about 2 years ago. So we started off with just a very small data set, and we gradually built up over the past 2 years. So we've got over 4,500 registered users of stat-xplore. As I said before, you don't need to register to use stat-xplore, but there are some key features that you get extra if you do register. So it's a big deal for us that 4,500 people have gone to the effort to register, and that has enabled us to speak to those 4,500 people and know who they are to some extent. Over the past 2 years, we've had almost 60,000 tables built. So that's 60,000 tables, that a large proportion of which we would have had to have produced those tables if stat-xplore wasn't in existence. So again, the volumes are quite big. You can see that it's grown over time. You'll see that there's a few spikes in there. So if you look at November 2014, there was a big spike in users. Why was that? Because we produced, it was one of our publication dates around November, but it also coincided with a lot of discussion, particularly around benefit sanctioning in the UK around November 2014. And that happened to be one of the data sets that was available in stat-xplore, and a lot of people went into stat-xplore to get figures and statistics out around about that time. Generally, at the moment, we're hitting about 2,000 or 3,000 tables being produced every month. I'm just going to really whiz through this. I can see a plate of breakfast, so I don't want to hang around too long. So, just some of the key benefits. We refer now to stat-xplore extensively. So if we get a freedom of information request, if we get a parliamentary question, if that data is available in stat-xplore, we tell the MP or their researcher, we tell the requester to go away and get those statistics yourself. Very nicely, yes. Not all MPs are happy with that approach. So I mentioned to the guys at Spacetime yesterday, if you do a search in Hansard, you have Hansard here. We have Hansard, which is a record of Parliament. There's been a request for a debate made by some Scottish National MPs about the use of stat-xplore. So you can now search, and stat-xplore comes up in Hansard, which is a very exciting moment for us. We can publish statistics more quickly. We used to, when we published benefit statistics, by the time we published them, they were about 5 months out of date, which isn't great. For universal credit, one of the sets of statistics that we publish on universal credit is how many claims have been made. We know how many claims have been made every day, and we publish statistics every month. The claims made figure is less than a week out of date by the time we publish it. Not all down to the software, but certainly that plays a part because we can push data through the software very quickly. We know that we're starting to get feedback from users, and we can act on that feedback really quickly. So we can do very quick communications with users. One of the features of the software, of the new version of the software underpinning stat-xplore, was a user can suppress any rows in a table where there's no data, called zero suppression. And that was a new feature, and we thought, that's fantastic. We'll turn that on by default so that any rows get suppressed. Did we get feedback very quickly from users? So we thought it was a great idea. Our users thought that it was not a very great idea. Within a week of us turning it on by default, we turned it off by default. We got that feedback really quickly. There have been features and development that's gone into some of the versions of the SuperWeb 2 software that's been as a direct result of feedback from users. We, as a government department in the UK, we lead the way in open data, and that's particularly because of stat-xplore. So we're able to demonstrate to the Cabinet Office in the UK, which lead a policy on open data. Every government department has to report their progress on open data every quarter. Stat-xplore is the example that our department uses every time. So the people who coordinate those responses are forever coming back to me about what's the latest development on stat-xplore, what can it do next, etc. So we lead the way. Our statistics have had much more exposure because more people are accessing them, and that's a good thing and a bad thing. So we don't restrict. One of the risks of putting lots of data out there is that we don't control it anymore. We know that a lot of pressure groups, a lot of people who are critical of government policy in the UK use stat-xplore and use the statistics as a result. And in most cases, use those statistics really responsibly and put across, for them, really good arguments. So we know they're being used much more widely. Finally, I thought I'd put this in. Okay. So we do have a really good working relationship with Spacetime. I think the size of the company of Spacetime means that we can implement developments and changes really quickly. If there are any issues, they get resolved really quickly. I can imagine if we were working, and we do work with very large companies, IBM and Hewlett-Packard and those sorts of companies as well. If you want changes made to software, you're talking years. I think it's fair to say that we've had changes implemented in our versions of the software within a matter of weeks. So when we were first launching stat-xplore, there were some critical things that we needed developing, and that happened within a matter of weeks. So it's a good relationship. The user, if there are any issues with the software, the arrangements in place are online arrangements in place are really good, and we get feedback really quickly. You'll be pleased to know, gosh, God knows how long I've been wittering on. I'm really sorry. I do have a bit of a reputation for wittering on in our department. So the final slide is just my contact details. So I'm sticking it. If anybody wants to ask me any questions about our implementation of the software or anything that's going on in the UK as a whole in terms of the benefit statistics, give us a shout, send us an email, grab me at some point afterwards. I'd be very pleased to talk to any of you. Thank you very much.